Welcome to Soul Searching Space, a space to remember who you truly are, who you came here to be, and what you came here to do. To be crystal clear, going from black and white thinking to full color HD, working from the inside out, reclaiming your power, waking up to your inherent wholeness, aligning soul, heart, mind, and body. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. We are continuing the conversation of boundaries. In the previous episodes, we explored what boundaries are and how to communicate your boundaries. If you haven't listened to those previous episodes, I invite you to do so. So, how has setting boundaries been for you? What came up for you? Did it go as you planned? How was it sitting with the discomfort, and how was it returning to your center? What have you reflected on afterwards? Have you noticed and been aware of the times ego convinced you to go back to familiar patterns? How do you want to practice and communicate boundaries in the future? What have you learned about yourself and others by practicing boundaries? In this episode, we are exploring some of the things that happens or may not happen after you communicate a boundary, and also some important things to be and do. So let's dive in. Once you've communicated your new boundary, it's very important for you to hold it and honor it. What this means is not going back to your older familiar patterns. For many of us, this is the hardest part. Own it, stay in your power, taking full ownership of your energies. Remember that people don't take our boundaries seriously unless we do. Remember that in most cases, action speaks louder than words. Whether you have your boundaries respected or not, the goal for you is to maintain the boundary. Remember your intention and your why, and that it's your job to continue to respect your boundary regardless of other people's intention. Maintain your boundaries and celebrate. Celebrate showing up for yourself. Celebrate your commitment to yourself, your relationship with yourself, and the relationship with the other person. The most important thing is to practice where we can and celebrate the success, because this is really hard work. Celebration brings a lot of tangible benefits, including a sense of accomplishment, increased feelings of self-worth, self-esteem, joy, happiness, and overall life satisfaction. Celebration also pivots the focus to what you want more of, because what you focus on grows. How often do you truly celebrate yourself? It's one of the quickest and simplest way to shift how you are feeling. Celebrating is one of my favorite things to be and do. To me, it's almost like an expression of gratitude. It's like a ritual where you acknowledge who you have been, who you are, and who you are becoming, and all of the abundance that is present in your life. Celebration raises our vibration to more joy and gratitude. When you are celebrating, you are broadcasting to the universe, yes, I desire more things to be grateful for. It's all too easy to reach a goal and then quickly move on without taking proper time and attention to acknowledge how far you've come. There are things in your life right now that are a reality that you once dreamed of that seem so far off, like such a distant dream or a very long journey ahead. But you did it. You are here now. You slayed your inner dragons and you climbed some mountains and you were strong and resilient and brave. And you're here. Celebrate it. Celebrate the journey. Celebrate you. Celebrating and focusing on small wins along the way is actually more beneficial and motivating than celebrating the big stuff. If we regularly celebrate our successes, we are more likely to notice more things to celebrate. Celebrating the small wins remind us why we do what we do and generate hope. When we celebrate the small wins, we focus on the journey that will eventually bring us to the destination. We wouldn't get to the destination without where we are now in our journey, without all the small wins, without all the small steps. Celebrate and look back and remind yourself that you have been moving further towards your goals with every little step you take. Taking the time to recognize, reflect, and celebrate also allows you to pinpoint exactly what worked so you can repeat that in the future and adjust accordingly. Celebrating success is key because it reminds you of all the ways you are truly growing and evolving and reminds you of the hard work you put in and the obstacles you've overcome. When you celebrate yourself, when you celebrate life, when you celebrate what you've overcome, when you celebrate what you achieved, when you celebrate what you created, and when you celebrate who you are becoming, it changes your perception of yourself and your life. It builds your self-trust, self-belief, your self-worth, your self-esteem, and it builds your confidence in yourself and your capabilities. It gives you motivation to keep going. You notice the things that makes you awesome and that you are worthy of celebration. You realize you are your biggest fan and therefore you must be the first to celebrate yourself. So what prevents us from celebrating? Maybe you think I'll celebrate when I make it to the finish line. The truth is, we are never really finished. There is always the next level to our growth. There are many blocks that prevents us from celebrating. And one of the biggest blocks I have come across in my work is that we believe there's a limited supply of a resource. So if I have something, it means there is not enough of it to go around. This blocks us from receiving more. This block is often rooted in the fear of not being good enough or feeling unworthy. Have you dimmed your light for others? Have you ever stopped yourself from sharing good news because you think it somehow takes away from their happiness, their success, their you name it? When we have this block, we don't celebrate because it might take away from others. The truth is, when we celebrate, we invite others to celebrate with us. And in doing so, we allow ourselves and them to experience joy. Two of our core needs as humans is to feel seen and heard. How can you give yourself these gifts? Celebrate the journey. Celebrate You really deserve it. Really reflect on your progress. A lot of times we don't even see how far we've come when it comes to boundaries, and we don't acknowledge how much we've moved forward. Notice where you might be stuck, but also notice where you are moving forward. Boundaries are a vital part of our individual self-love and self-care that allows us to be our true self, to free ourselves from resentment, to regulate ourselves and our nervous system, and to create an overall feeling of safety within ourselves and our body, our relationships, and our world. Both internal and external boundaries are required to live in wholeness. Have reciprocal relationships where everyone is taking up all their space. You want to take up all your space, and other people can take up all their space. A big piece of energetic boundaries is actually knowing what's going on with you and feeling and sensing yourself. So practice that, because otherwise other people's experiences become center instead of our own center. It's having that dual awareness where you notice you can always have attention on yourself and the other person at the same time. Reflect and observe and adjust accordingly, and eventually you will have your own framework for practicing, setting, and communicating boundaries. As you continue this work, you will have new consciousness and awareness, and this is where your power and your safety lies. Here are some questions to reflect on. Where do you experience persistent resentment? Where do you feel unappreciated and disrespected? Do you argue with people when they are not around, like in your head after meeting with them or after talking with them on the phone? Do you need stronger boundaries? Are there any areas where you are being too firm with your boundaries, where you don't need to be? In what ways can you be a bit more fair, balanced, and willing to negotiate in setting boundaries? Do you have boundaries that might actually be preventing you from getting close to people who feel trustworthy? Do you have strong internal and external boundaries? You need to get into your own energetic space. You need to feel your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own being. And you cannot do that when you are entangled in other people's energies, everyone else's agendas, wants, needs, and desires, and more. So you need to practice and see how you feel when you are not entangled in other people's energies. Are you giving or receiving unsolicited advice? If you want to give advice, ask, may I share my thoughts with you? And if you don't want to receive advice, you can simply say, no, thank you. I have people in my life who I look to for this kind of support. Know the difference between judgment and discernment. Judgment is that person is wrong, bad, annoying, etc. Discernment is I don't want that person in my life because of that behavior or because I see X, Y, and Z. Discernment is the active practice of setting boundaries to guard your energies. You can say, I don't want that kind of behavior in my life without making them feel bad about who they are. Or you can say, I will not tolerate this behavior because I deserve to be treated with respect. It's your responsibility to protect yourself from a place of love and to have discernment and see things clearly. So the difference is that judgment forgets the body and is caught up in the mind and starts to analyze and telling stories. Discernment is just in the body. There's no judgment to it. You just feel it. There's no attachment to it unless you start getting caught up in the mind again. So you could say judgment is about who they are, discernment is about what they do. Part of boundary work is understanding our own mechanism of reaction and response and continue to evolve. If you observe yourself thinking, I wish this person would change, you're giving your power away. Instead, reflect on these questions. How can you reclaim your power? How can you step into personal power versus circumstantial power? Are you responding to something from the past? When we have unresolved hurt from the past, the subconscious is wanting to heal it. What kind of people are you attracting into your life? What are they mirroring back to you? Are you attracting certain kinds of partners, friends, co-workers, or bosses? Reflect, who does this person remind me of? Why is this situation or person familiar to me? What assumptions am I bringing into this pattern or this role? How can I choose to see this person or situation differently? Have I been in this kind of situation or pattern or role or dynamic before? Why is this so familiar? Are you attracting people into your life that spirals you back to that place of forgetting yourself? Is it certain kind of people or certain personalities, certain power dynamics where you can set boundaries easily and where you remember yourself, and then others where it's easy to forget yourself? Remember that people don't trigger you. People trigger your triggers. Remember, you're not doing this work to change anyone. You are doing this work for you. As you continue to practice boundaries, here are more things to remember. We set boundaries so we can manage our own energies, not the energies of others. Keep in mind that boundaries are necessary for a healthy relationship with yourself and others. Grieve when others can't show up for you. Maybe the other person isn't happy with the boundary, and that's okay. And maybe you don't see each other for a while, and that hurts, and that's okay too. Once you have started to practice boundaries, you begin to stand for boundaries in a firm way. You will feel powerful with your new self-awareness. Maybe you recognize that it doesn't always come out the way you intended to. Most of the discomfort is in our minds. Practice makes progress. Sometimes it's gonna feel like you're taking one step forward and two steps back. It does get easier over time because you get more comfortable and you will feel more confident. Remember, you're learning new tools and it takes time. You are showing up and that's all that you can do. Over time, when you show up for yourself in little and small ways, you will gain more self-trust. Regardless of what happened when you communicated the boundary, remember that you did the best you could with the level of awareness you had. And now you have experience and you have more choices. You adjust accordingly. If we felt like we were harsh, we can apologize for the way that we deliver the boundary, but we don't take away the boundary in doing so. Apologizing is very vulnerable, and we have to be really clear that we don't merge the two and then end up dropping and surrendering our boundary in the process. Your choices aren't set in stone. It's okay to regroup, understand your needs better, and make new decisions based on deeper understanding. Keep your explanation short, objective, and as to the point as possible. You will notice that people actually respond well to direct conversations. Really connect with parts of yourself that have been repressed through anger. Your anger tells you where your boundaries have been crossed and where you are not maintaining boundaries, where you have been tread upon, where someone is imposing their will on you. And so that will really bring up some anger as well. As you elevate your self-esteem and your self-worth and what you value and really connect with your values and desires, it's important for you to move forward in a way that represents who you truly are, rather than who you thought you once were. So really feel confident as you let go of those old aspects of yourself, that you are moving towards something renewing and joyful and beautiful, and your body will always show you when you are headed in the direction that feels true for you. What do you want your life to look like when it's aligned to your core values? Choose love and set boundaries from a place of love, not fear. Because if you have healthy boundaries for yourself, you also get to evaluate whether you are doing a good job being a recipient of the boundaries of other people. So sometimes we think that we have boundary challenges in one area, but it's in all areas, because if you don't have self-love and boundaries with yourself, you're not going to have it with your family, with your partner, with your friends, and so on. You need to practice what you preach. That's why I mentioned in previous episode, start with setting boundaries with yourself first. Your inner world changes your outer world. Boundaries with yourself means having thriving relationship with yourself, self-discipline, and healthy management of your energies. You are the only one responsible for your energies. The way we expand is actually through boundaries. As we expand, we need more boundaries. Boundaries is an act of self-love. As you expand, you need stronger boundaries. You cannot have more boundaries and not be expanding. Boundaries allows us to have a mutually fulfilling relationship, one where we are not reliant on someone else to complete us, to fix us, to meet our needs, to make us feel better, and one where we can really honor our individualities. Unfortunately, we don't master boundaries overnight, but we overcome them each and every time we honor ourselves. Some relationships end and others move into something that's so much more fulfilling and sustainable for everyone involved. Be kind to yourself. Healing is not linear. Practicing boundaries is a lifelong process, a lifelong journey. Claim your worth. That's what boundaries is all about. I honor you for being here because it takes a lot of courage to be on this path to owning your boundaries and also wanting to be loving at the same time. So just to recap, here are your action steps if you feel called. Step 1, maintain your boundaries. Step 2, celebrate the fact that you are showing up and honoring yourself. Step 3, reflect and adjust accordingly and repeat. Again, I know how challenging practicing, setting, and communicating boundaries can be. So if you would like support with boundaries, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll add the link in the show notes. Okay, that is all for now. What resonated with you and what are you going to be and do about it? Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your time and thank you for your presence. I look forward to being with you again. I am sending you so much love, and until next time, may you remember to celebrate yourself. You may have a long way to go, but appreciate how far you have come.